Hey, what is up guys? Check out what I am about to do to these Overlord champions in this Grandmaster. They simply vanished before my teammates could even see them. The same goes for these two unstoppables at the back. The build I'm about to show you is the John Wick of exterminating champions. I mean, this build can even take plates by itself without breaking a sweat thanks to the invisibility that it has. I am going to go over exactly the damage stacking that goes in this build, as well as the resistances that you want to be using in order to even survive whenever a boss stomps the ground in Grandmasters. You are going to be roaming around while being invisible, waiting like a predator for its prey. This is all thanks to the exotic Heartshadow, which if you don't already have, then what are you waiting for? I am doing Grandmaster carries and farming duality on my stream, so if you want to obtain this exotic, make sure to check it out and I'll be more than happy to help. As I've mentioned, Heartshadow is such a unique sword that not only provides you with infinite invisibility, but it also weakens enemies once charged up. This allows you to play extremely aggressive in the hardest content out there. Thanks to this and Echo of Obscurity, you will have a crazy uptime on invisibility, making you almost feel like a Void Hunter while still getting all the benefits that come with the Titan subclass. The way we are going to be dealing such massive amounts of damage is thanks to our exotic Peregrine Greaves, which after sprinting for at least 2 seconds and being airborne for half of a second gives you the Peregrine Strike buff, which increases your shoulder charge damage by 225% against all enemies, and by 1000% against mini-bosses, champions, and tormentors. Here is an infographic on how you can see whether an enemy is a mini-boss or not. Because for example, the Big Scorn in Birthplace of the Vile might look like a mini-boss because I mean, it literally dies in 3 rockets, but it actually turns out to be a boss, so you will not get your entire melee refunded when hitting him with your shield bash. But as long as you hit mini-bosses, tormentors or champions, you will get your entire melee back refunded, which is extremely fun. However, Peregrines alone are not enough to one-shot Grandmaster champions. That is why we are also going to be using our Aspect Offensive Bulwark, which also increases our melee damage by another 100% as long as we have an overshield, which we can easily obtain thanks to our barricade with our second aspect bastion and whenever we get a kill with our shield bash. For those that don't know, void overshields provide you with 50% damage reduction as long as they are active. This makes us much tankier in endgame content, allowing us to be more aggressive. Lastly, to keep us alive, we are going to be using Devour and mods such as melee damage resistance and concussive dampener, because these mods are extremely important if you plan on playing more aggressive with this build. Melee damage resistance reduces all incoming damage that's within 4 meters of you. On the other hand, concussive dampener reduces all AoE damage, that includes grenades, explosions, and of course whenever a boss or champion stomps the ground. So I would suggest to always run these 2 mods and then add a third elemental mod such as Void Resistance. Let's dive into the aspects, fragments and mods that we are going to be using with this build. Stat wise, make sure that you get 100 resilience, followed by recovery, discipline and strength. Ability wise, I am using Rally Barricade with Shield Bash and then Vortex Grenade. For our aspect, we are using Offensive Bulwark with Bastion. Fragment wise, we are starting off with Echo of Obscurity, that way we can go invisible on finishers. Echo of Persistence, so we can have a longer duration on our void buffs. Echo of Starvation, so we can get Devour. And finally, I like to use Echo of Leeching, just to help me to survive in harder content. However, you can also use Echo of Cessation if you want more explosions and volatile, or Echo of Provision in case you need to get your melee back even faster. Mod wise, on our helmet we are going to be using Solar Siphon with Hands On and then a Heavy Ammo Finder. On our gauntlets we are using Heavy Handed with Focusing Strike and Bolstering Detonation. On our chestplate we are using the Triple Resist mod that I've shown you in this video, followed by Harmonic Scavenger, Absolution and Insulation on our leg armor. Finally, on our Titan mark, we are using 1-2 finisher to get our melee back, combined with Proximity Ward to make sure that we don't die, and then Outreach. Weapon wise, if you wanna have fun in GMs and truly feel like an assassin, then Heartshadow is definitely the way to go. I usually like to pair it up with a Lingering Dread, with Chill Clip and Disorienting Nades, and then a long range weapon, that way I can also be useful from a distance. Now, if you want to play it safer, then instead you can use your favorite exotic solar weapon to make sure that you're taking advantage of the broken seasonal artifact that we have this season. The way you play this build is quite simple. You always want to make sure that you have an overshield before going for a champion, because this is not only going to keep you safe, but it will also guarantee that you one-shot the champion. Now, against overloads, it's not that big of a deal because your shield bash actually suppresses them, meaning that they get stunned and you can simply go for a second shield bash to finish them off. On that note, remember that your shield bash actually suppresses. This basically makes enemies useless, and it also counters some Loosen Hive when they transform. If you miss your melee, you can always find an enemy to finish, and thanks to 1-2 finisher, you will almost get your entire melee back. This is also why we don't really invest into strength with this build, because 1-2 finisher exists. Finally, the last tip I can also give you is that you can charge up your peregrines by sprinting into a wall or into an object if for some reason you can't do it in open space. And that is all for today's video, guys. If you have any questions or if you need any help, then make sure to check me out on my stream and Discord server. Have a wonderful rest of your day.